I'm going to tell you 7 things about Amish bedroom life that I have never seen explained honestly anywhere. Not in documentaries, not in books written by outsiders who spent 3 weeks with a cooperative family and called it research, not in the articles that use words like charming and simple and wholesome to describe a life they never had to actually live inside. I grew up in that life. I slept in those rooms. I followed those rules without knowing they were rules. Because when something is the only way you have ever known, it does not feel like a rule. It feels like air. It feels like the shape of the world. I was past 40 before I understood that the bedroom I had shared with my husband for more than 2 decades had been governed by an invisible architecture that neither of us had ever been given the chance to question. Some of what I am going to tell you will surprise you. Some of it will make you uncomfortable. And one of these 7 things, the one I am saving for last, is something I have not spoken about in any other video. Something that happened in our bedroom in the 23rd year of our marriage that changed the way I understood everything that had come before it. I am not ready to tell you that part yet, but I will be by the end. Stay with me. Before we go any further, there is something I want to say from the heart. More than 90% of the people watching right now have not subscribed yet. And perhaps that would not matter so much if these stories were just words. But they are not. They are pieces of a life. Pieces of rooms that most people will never enter. Pieces of moments that shaped women who were never asked if they wanted to be shaped that way. So if you have found something real in these videos, something true, please take a moment to subscribe. It is completely free and it helps this community continue growing. And while you are here, I want to know, what feeling brought you to this video tonight? Tell me in the comments below. The first rule is one that most people never think to ask about because they assume they already know the answer. In a traditional Amish home, the bedroom is not a private space in the way the English world understands privacy. This surprises people. They imagine the Amish as intensely private, and in many ways that is true. But the privacy of the Amish is a communal privacy. What is kept secret is kept secret from outsiders, from the English world, from anyone beyond the district. Within the community itself, within the extended family and the church, very little is truly private, and the bedroom is no exception. When I was first married, our bedroom window faced the lane that ran along the side of the house. Every morning, I could hear my mother-in-law's footsteps on the gravel before the sun was fully up. She did not knock on the bedroom door. There was an understanding, unspoken but absolute, that the household rose together, and that rising together meant the walls between spaces were thin. Not just physically thin, though they were that too, old farmhouse walls with gaps where the cold came through in January, but thin in the sense that what happened in the bedroom was understood to belong not just to the couple, but to the family, and by extension, to the community. Whether the couple had rested well, whether the wife seemed tired in a particular way that the older women recognized and nodded at, whether the husband came to breakfast quiet or at ease. These things were noticed. They were read. They were part of a language that nobody taught you and everybody spoke. This is the first rule. The bedroom has walls, but not the kind you think. The second rule concerns the bed itself. In the early years of an Amish marriage, particularly in more conservative districts, the marriage bed is often a piece of furniture that carries the weight of the entire community's expectation. It is frequently a bed that belonged to someone else first, a grandparent, an aunt, a piece of furniture handed down not as sentiment, but as continuity, as a physical reminder that you are not the first and will not be the last to lie in this place and do what is expected of you here. I slept in a bed that had belonged to my husband's grandmother. I knew this. I thought about it sometimes in the dark, in those early years when I was still learning the shape of my own marriage, still learning what was mine inside it and what belonged to the tradition I had been placed inside. The mattress was not hers anymore, but the frame was. The wood had been sanded and restained, but the joints were the same joints she had slept beside for 50 years. There is something in that which I cannot fully explain to someone who did not grow up understanding that objects carry history the way people carry memory. The third rule is about light, or the absence of it. There are no bedside lamps in the way the English world has them. No soft glow from a phone screen, no television light, no reading lamp on a flexible neck that you can angle toward the page while your husband sleeps beside you. There is lamplight, kerosene, in the earlier years of my marriage, and later battery-operated lights in some households as the district's rules shifted and bent. But the darkness of an Amish bedroom is a different quality of darkness than most people alive today have ever experienced. It is complete. It settles over everything at the same time. When the lamp goes out, the room becomes the same as the fields outside, the same as the sky, the same as every dark room in every farmhouse in the district where other couples are lying in the same completeness of dark. There is something about that shared darkness that I missed for years after I left. I did not expect to miss it. I did not understand what it was that I was mourning until I was living in a house where the streetlight came through the curtain all night, and I realized I had never once in my childhood or my marriage slept in a room with that kind of gray, permanent, almost light. The Amish dark is total, and in that totality, sound becomes everything. The breathing of your husband beside you, the sound of the house settling, the particular creak of a board that you learn to identify by location the way a sailor learns a ship. The fourth rule is the one that surprises people most when I tell it. In many traditional Amish communities, and this was true in my district, there is an unspoken but firmly held understanding that intimacy between a husband and wife is never to be spoken of. Not to friends, not to sisters, not to your own mother. The older women who prepared me for marriage, the women who took me aside in the weeks before my wedding and spoke to me carefully and quietly about what to expect, they spoke in a language so indirect that I did not fully understand what they were telling me until I was already inside the marriage. They used the word duty. They used the phrase, what God has given you for each other. They did not use any word that named the thing directly. And once I was married, that silence continued. I had a friend, a woman I had known since we were girls, and we talked about everything. We talked about our husbands and our children and our fears and our frustrations and the particular loneliness of February when the fields are dead and the cold comes in under every door. We never once talked about what happened in our bedrooms, not in 20 years of friendship, not directly. There were things communicated sideways, a sigh, a look, a particular way of going quiet when a certain subject brushed too close. But the words were never said. The rule against saying them was so deep that it did not feel like a rule. It felt like the edge of the world, like the place where the ground simply ended. The fifth rule is about children and the lack of separation between their sleep and their parents' sleep that the English world would find alarming. In many Amish homes, particularly in the early years of a marriage before the house fills completely, the bedroom is not exclusively the parent's space. Infants sleep nearby, sometimes in the same room for months, sometimes longer. There is no nursery in the English sense. The idea of placing a baby at a significant distance from the mother's body, behind a door, in a separate monitored space, would strike most Amish women I knew as not just unusual, but as something close to wrong. The body of the mother is the child's first world. The bedroom is the extension of that body. And so the bedroom in those early years of marriage is never fully private, even from the children who have not yet learned to need privacy themselves. This shapes something in the marriage that I did not have words for until much later. It shapes the way a couple learns to be together in the presence of others, even small others, even sleeping others. It shapes a particular kind of restraint that becomes so habitual it outlasts the years when restraint is necessary. By the time your youngest child is old enough to sleep in another room, the restraint has become the marriage. The sixth rule is about what is kept in the bedroom and what is not. An Amish bedroom is nearly empty by any standard you are likely to be accustomed to. There are no photographs on the walls because photographs of people are not permitted in many conservative districts. There are no decorations in the sense of things chosen for beauty alone. There may be a quilt, and the quilt may be extraordinarily beautiful, but its beauty is incidental to its purpose. It is there to keep you warm. If it is also beautiful, that is something that happened alongside the warmth, not instead of it. There are no books, except in some households, a Bible on the nightstand. There are no objects that belong only to you, that you chose only for yourself, that sit in the room as evidence of your own particular inner world. What this means, and I did not understand this until I left and stood in my first English bedroom and looked around at all the things I had chosen because I wanted them, is that the Amish bedroom contains almost no evidence of the individual. It contains evidence of the couple, the quilt they sleep under, the furniture they were given, the single lamp. But the self, the individual self with its particular tastes and its private comforts and its small chosen beauties, that self is not present in the room. And when your self is not present in the room where you sleep, something happens to yourself over time. Something quiet, something that takes a long time to name. Now I am going to tell you the seventh rule, the one I promised at the beginning, the one I have not spoken about before. I want you to understand that what I am about to tell you is not something that happened to everyone. I do not know how many women in my district shared this experience. The silence around bedroom life was so complete that I had no way of knowing what was common and what was particular to my own marriage. But I suspect, based on the sideways conversations and the looks and the particular silences I described earlier, that I was not alone. In the 23rd year of our marriage, my husband came to bed one night, and he sat on the edge of the mattress for a long time before he lay down. I was not asleep. I was rarely asleep as quickly as I pretended to be. He sat there, and finally he said something he had never said in 23 years of marriage. He said, "Rebecca, are you happy?" Not as a question. He said it the way you say something you have been holding for so long that when it finally comes out, the punctuation is wrong. I did not answer immediately. The dark was complete around us. The house was quiet. Our youngest was already out of the house by then, and it was just the two of us, in a silence that had become its own kind of language over more than 2 decades. I said, "I don't know what that means." And he said, "Neither do I." We lay there for a long time after that without speaking, and what I understood in that silence, what I have been trying to find words for ever since, is this. The 7th rule is that in a traditional Amish bedroom, you are never taught to ask that question. You are never given the language for it. You are given duty and continuity and the weight of the community's expectation, and the quilt someone else stitched, and the bed someone else slept in first, and the darkness that belongs to everyone equally. But the question of whether you are happy inside all of it, whether the self that has been sleeping in this room for 23 years is a self that has been seen or only a self that has been present, that question has no place in the architecture of the room as it was designed. My husband had broken a rule he did not know existed by asking it. And I had broken it too by not answering right away, by sitting with the question instead of smoothing it over, by letting it stay in the room with us, taking up space, the way a self takes up space when it is finally allowed to. I left the community 3 years after that night. My husband did not leave. We did not end in anger. We ended in the same quiet we had always spoken in, the language of the room, the language of the dark, the language of two people who had made something real out of what they had been handed, and who understood that what they had made was not enough, and was also not nothing. I carried those 7 rules out of that life without knowing I was carrying them. I carry them still. Not as wounds, not exactly, though some of them left marks. I carry them the way you carry the floor plan of the first house you lived in. You know where every door is, even in the dark. Especially in the dark. Before you leave, I want to thank you for staying with me until the very end. I know there are so many videos you could have watched today, and you spent these minutes here, inside these rooms, inside this life. But I noticed something. More than 90% of the people who watch these stories have not yet subscribed. So if something here stayed with you, if it reminded you of a door you knew by memory, or a dark you once belonged to, or a question someone asked you that changed the shape of the room, I hope you will subscribe. It is free, and it helps these stories continue reaching the people who need them. And before you go, tell me in the comments, what part of this stayed with you the longest? I would love to read what you carry out of here.